Movement in Fortnite has changed more than any other mechanic in the game. It started out simple, basic, just moving left and right, but then it became one of the most important skills that separates casuals from pros, and over the years, it has turned into something completely different, something that defines how the best players in the world dominate every single fight. Because at the beginning, controller players had a huge advantage. Their analog sticks let them strafe perfectly, making them impossible to hit, while keyboard players were stuck with stiff robotic movement that felt clunky and predictable. So players started getting creative, taping their keyboards, trying weird keybinds, building insane muscle memory, all just to compete. And slowly, the movement meta began to evolve. Players discovered third-party programs that let them move diagonally, and all of a sudden, the entire scene exploded. You had keyboard players sliding, gliding, weaving around builds, like they were on controller. And everyone wanted that edge. But here's where it gets wild. Epic Games saw all of this happening, and instead of banning everyone, they decided to build it straight into the game itself, introducing custom diagonal movement, so that now you could have that smooth controller-like movement without breaking any rules. And yet, even after Epic made it official, the community still couldn't agree on what's actually best, because right now, in Chapter 6, Season 2, the world's best players are completely split. Some of them swear by default movement, while others refuse to play without custom diagonals. And if that doesn't tell you how deep this debate goes, I don't know what will. On one side, you've got Peterbot, the #1 player in the entire world, a mechanical god who refuses to touch custom settings because he says the default movement just feels cleaner, smoother, and more predictable. For edits on the other side, you've got Vico II, best player in the world, who literally cannot play without double movement because he says it gives him more control, more flexibility, and more creative freedom during fights. So which one is actually better? Well, before we get to that, we need to understand the 3 main movement options in Fortnite. First, there's default movement. That's your classic WASD setup, what you've used since day one. Simple, straightforward, nothing fancy. Second, there's custom diagonals that Epic added to mimic controller strafing. This lets you set angles for how far you can move left and right, giving you smoother movement. And the third option is third-party software, like Quitxn Input or Wooting double movement, which was super popular years ago, but has slowly disappeared, because Epic made it unnecessary now, with those 3 options laid out. Let's take a look at what the pros are doing, and this is where things get spicy, because almost every pro has their own belief and setup starting. With the third-party apps, honestly, there are barely any pros using those anymore, maybe 1 or 2 experimenting. But it's basically extinct now. The default movement crew, however, is stacked. We've got Peterbot, the Al Maley, Booker Vanek, and even Thomas HD, all rocking standard movement. And if you've ever wondered why they gave up on double movement, it all started after the Chapter 5 update. Epic changed how movement angles worked, and suddenly, double movement felt off slower, clunkier, less natural. So a lot of pros switched back to default and stuck with it from then on. But the other side, the custom diagonal gang, is still massive. Players like Vico Clix, Booga Bowls, Ritual Cole Hoyo, Mr. Savage, and King are all still using custom angles. And it's crazy how specific they get. Vico runs 70-90-135, Clix uses 62-90-135, Booga goes 70-90-135 Bowls, same Ritual, 70-90-135 Cole 70-90. 135 Hoyo, 74-90-135, Mr. Savage, 64-90-122, and King 75-90-130. And from that data alone, you can clearly see the most common triple angle setup among pros is 70, 90, and 135. So you could say that's the meta. But the truth is, even with the data, even with all the pros using it, it still comes down to personal preference, because movement isn't just about numbers. It's about comfort, confidence, and rhythm. And that's why Peterbot sticks with default. It's reliable and never changes, while Vico sticks with custom, because it gives him that creative flow when he's tunneling, building, and dodging shots. And that's what makes Fortnite Movement so beautiful there isn't one right answer, just different styles that fit different minds. But let's take a second to appreciate how far it's all come from the early days when people taped their keyboards to the rise of the wooting. Boards that gave everyone controller levels of control to now, when Epic just hands you the tools built in. No more hacks, no more macros, just skill and understanding. And that evolution says everything about the competitive scene, the players who master movement, master positioning, the players who master positioning win fights, and the ones who win fights win tournaments. That's why movement is everything. It's not just about strafing, it's about flow, it's about control, it's about making your opponent feel like they can't touch you while you dance around their builds like it's second nature. And that's what the pros chase every single day when they load into creative and grind hundreds of hours to make their movement feel like liquid. So if you want to get better at Fortnite, stop focusing only on your aim or your builds, focus on how you move. Practice your diagonals, your strafes, your jump timings, and your momentum. Because when you master movement, everything else becomes easier. And it doesn't matter if you play default like Peterbot or custom like Vico. What matters is how natural it feels in your hands and how confidently you can translate that into real fights. The best setup is the one that makes you forget about your keys entirely, when it just feels like instinct, when you stop thinking and start reacting. That's when you know you found your perfect movement setup. So experiment with everything. Test your angles, tweak your settings, and find your flow. Because Fortnite keeps evolving every season. Every update brings new physics and tweaks that shift the meta. And if you want to stay on top, you have to adapt constantly. So keep grinding. Stay ahead of the curve and make your movement your secret weapon. Because the next time you box someone up or dodge a shot with a perfect diagonal strafe, you'll realize movement isn't just part of the game, it is the game. And that's why mastering it separates the good from the great, and the great from the legendary. So if you're watching this right now, go into creative, turn on your settings, play around with them for an hour. You might find something that completely changes how you play. Because that's what every pro did, and that's why they're where they are today. And who knows, maybe the next meta, the next big thing in Fortnite movement is being discovered by someone like you right now, grinding silently, perfecting the craft, while everyone else is copying. Settings. So whether you're a Peterbot purist or a Vico diagonal demon, just keep pushing the limits of your movement and never stop improving, because that's what Fortnite is all about. Constant evolution, constant discovery, constant growth, and when the next big tournament comes around, the player with the cleanest, smoothest movement might just walk away with the crown.